Hi everyone. Today we are going to work on section 18.2, which is on government influence on pricing. So our objectives for today are to list 5 unfair pricing practices some businesses may attempt to use, to discuss pricing laws that protect businesses and consumers, and explain how and when the government may attempt to control some prices. Our key terms are bait and switch, price fixing, price discrimination, deceptive pricing, predatory pricing, loss leader, price gouging, price floor, and price ceiling. Okay, so we're going to basically spend the majority of this section talking about unfair pricing practices, and businesses that use these unfair pricing practices are breaking laws in addition to being unethical. So some of these are illegal and some of them are unethical, and we'll differentiate between the two. But all unfair pricing practices, whether illegal or unethical, can be harmful to consumers. Another thing to think about as a business, if they do use unfair pricing practices, there's a high likelihood that they could lose customers, but also they could, if it's illegal, pay stiff fines or have their businesses closed. That has been pretty prevalent with everything that's happening right now in COVID. And so we will address that when we get there. The first unfair pricing practice that we're going to talk about is a bait and switch. And you may have heard this before. This is when a company advertises one product, but the intention is to get them into the store. And when they get into the store, convince them to buy a more expensive item. So this happens a lot with especially around the holidays, where they companies use really low price items to come into the store, but then they only have a certain amount of them. So that's a bait and switch. Price fixing is a group of competitors working together to set high prices for specific products. So like if two gas stations that were right next to each other got together and said, do you know what, we're not going to compete against each other. We're going to work together to raise our prices because we're the only gas stations within this area. People will have no other choice but to come to us. So that is price fixing. Price discrimination is when a company sells the same product to different customers at different prices based on personal characteristics. And I always say when you go somewhere to buy a car or something along those lines, don't dress like you can afford a really fancy car. Make sure that you're dressing down those days so that the salespeople don't get the wrong idea and think that you have more money to spend. I also need to talk about deceptive pricing, and that is pricing to intentionally mislead customers. Predatory pricing is setting very low prices to remove the competition. That's not healthy for the economy, just because you need competition and you need businesses to thrive. And if companies end up getting shut down because because different companies use predatory pricing, then that can create a monopoly. Loss leader pricing is pricing an item much lower than market price or cost of acquiring the product, and that's done to get customers in the store to buy other products. For example, around back to school time, we have like Staples who offers notebooks for a penny and things like that. That is loss leader pricing. They're going to lose money on those products, but they know that people are going to come in and spend more money on more expensive things, like maybe they have to buy a graphing calculator or something like that. Price gouging is raising prices on certain kinds of goods to an excessively high level during an emergency. That has come about a few times that I've seen during COVID. Price gouging is, taking things like toilet paper per se that are hard to come by and pricing them at much higher than they would have been offered otherwise, because people need them and demand is so high. So that is price gouging. Now, there are different state and federal laws that regulate pricing to prevent unfair pricing policies. I'm not going to lecture you on all of these different laws, but your activity for today is going to be to do your own research on each one of these laws, just to kind of get the gist of what these laws are and how they are important. The U.S. government may intervene in the pricing of some products in an attempt to control the economy or help consumers, especially in times like these. So they may set maximum prices called price ceilings for certain goods and services. So, for example, for a price ceiling, the government may put a price ceiling on water and say you can't price it so high that people can't afford it. On the flip side, the government might come in and say there's a minimum price that you can price certain things. That's called a price floor. And that's for certain goods and services that it thinks are being priced too low. And that's going to help the producers and ultimately help the economy. So price floors are just as important as price ceilings in terms of the economy.